Welcome, friend. This is I Need Thee Every Hour, a podcast dedicated to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You are listening to your ministering sister, Casey Mills. Hello, welcome back. This is part 2 of what I decided to call the Twilight Zone. So I was speaking in the previous episode about, I guess I should say in part 1 of the Twilight Zone. I was speaking about a very kind of critical or poignant experience that I had had in my previous marriage and with my previous in-laws that I felt like was a preface to what I was going to end up going through then when I did finally work up the courage to divorce him and try to separate myself from that family. Now, there's so much. Oh, goodness. There's so much I want to say. So I will say that part of that lead-in was to then bring you to something that I'm dealing with that actually it reared its ugly head. All of this past stuff kind of reared its ugly head this week when I've been dealing with certain contention, if you will, between myself and a couple of my daughters. So my oldest daughter, that is, so she is the one from the previous story that was made to feel uncomfortable. She is now 14, and she's about as beautiful and wonderful and talented and whatever you want to say about a 14-year-old girl, vibrant. And she's also dealing with a lot of the same things that you would expect a 14-year-old girl to be dealing with, trying to make friends and wanting to be noticed by boys, but also scared of boys and trying to, look cool and but no, I'm not trying to look cool, It's like, yeah, right. All high school kids are trying to look cool. Come on. I was there. I remember being 14. Anywho, so one of the things that happened was, so she has been doing dance for years. And that was something that started when she was just a little tyke. And, there was, however many years, here and there that she wasn't doing dance. But then it really got kicked into full gear when I split from her dad. And during the time when I was forced to move out of state. And so I was having my kids fly to visit me, fly for visits. And so during that time that we were essentially separated, I tried to not let more than 2 months at a time go by before I would see my kids again. But anyway, that was the lowest time of my life during those years. Being separated from your kids as a mother is one of the worst things that you can experience. And and especially with, my kids calling me and doing video chat, which I was grateful to be able to do video chat and to talk with them and to be able to do it at all, let alone as much as I did. But my oldest daughter, she would frequently be upset and would just, be missing me and wanting to be with me. And, and I'd be trying to help her to, stay calm and try to, assure her that I was doing everything I possibly could to work with her dad and the court system and, to get them with me. But it was hard. He and his family were fighting me tooth and nail. They didn't even want the kids to visit me or talk to me. They didn't want them even acknowledging that they had a mother. It was pretty sick. The whole situation was pretty sick. Even my youngest daughter, I remember her saying to me something about when she was at school and they were doing something for Mother's Day, and she said, someone said that I could use their mom because I didn't have a mom. And she, and I'm like, this kid thinks she doesn't have a mom, like how pathetic is this? And of course I blamed myself for all of it, but I knew that the Lord was working something out for us. He had put me on a path that I couldn't deviate from, and I needed to trust His timing and trust His ways. And it was hard. It was hard. Like I said, that's a whole nother episode or two about that, about how I even got into that situation. But like I said, their dad and his family were making it even worse than it even needed to be. And so my oldest daughter, but the only thing, okay, so she was being treated like she shouldn't want to talk to me or be with me. There was a lot of other things that were going on in the home with him, and he was essentially having his mother and sister take care of my kids. He would be holed up in his room for days, weeks at a time. He wasn't working. I can think of maybe it was a total of a year out of the past however many years now it's been that he actually was working. And even then, I think it was just a part-time thing. I don't even think it was full-time. But anyway, that's a whole nother issue. But basically, my oldest daughter, essentially what happened was because I removed myself from the situation. I truly believed that their dad hated me, that his family hated me. I felt like he wanted to make me miserable and make me as miserable as he seemed to be with me. And I really truly believed that he loved his children and that his family loved his children. And so I thought, if I just remove myself from the situation and then we just kind of split our time with the kids evenly, because I'm having to work and I think he ought to have to work. And so I just felt like if I don't get, I want to be able to enjoy my time with my kids. I want to have them as much as I can, but I can't have them all the time because I have to work. Someone has to work, right? And basically, since I was gone, well, okay, now who's going to be his focal point, right? Who's going to get the verbal abuse? Who's going to get the emotional and psychological abuse by him and his family? Well, that went to my oldest daughter, not my oldest child. My son is in this sacred position. The males in that family are treated like gold, okay? But the females are kind of like, you're just expected to just do whatever. You're basically a slave kind of a thing, right? Anyway, so my oldest daughter was absolutely expected to grow up way quicker than she should have. She was, I want to say, 7 when he and I split up. That was very young, but she was put into this position where she was expected to take care of her younger sisters. These kids were left to their own devices quite a lot, expected to get themselves to the school bus on their own. Things like that, make their own breakfast, lunch, all of these kinds of things that happened. There were times here and there that they were, being taken care of, but there was quite a lot of time where they really were not. And that was extremely difficult for me to know what was happening because she was telling me what was happening. Now she's been put in this awful position, okay? And I felt terrible because I felt like, well, it's my fault because I removed myself. I was the one that was the target. And now because I removed myself, now I essentially put my daughter in this position where now she's the target. And that was really difficult to accept. That made me feel really, really awful, okay, for lack of a better word. It was awful. And I remember at different times, praying to the Lord because I knew He wanted me to divorce him. I know He had told me to, and He told me when, and I had to just go through with it. I had to follow through. But when these kinds of things would come up, I would doubt, and I would go to the Lord and I would say, why are my kids having to suffer? Like, this is not what I wanted. Like, why are we in this situation? What can I do? Should I try to, it was early on that I entertained the idea of getting back together with him, but I didn't. But eventually it was kind of like, okay, well, that's not an option. I know that's not an option. But what do I do now? How do I reconcile this? I put my kids in this situation, right? They were all dealing with stuff, right? It wasn't just my oldest daughter, but they were all dealing with things. His anger and his depressive and depression and anxiety and I think he might even be bipolar. There's just a lot of things that were happening that just got worse, and my kids were his family members were getting it too. I know they were, but my kids were really getting it, especially when they were home alone with him. And they would frequently be scared, and they'd call me, and it was just awful. Anyway, I was told that my daughter, if I did not split from her dad when I did and stay away from him, that she was going to grow up and end up in the exact same marriage. She was going to end up marrying the exact same kind of person. And that was all that I needed to hear. And that is something that I have held to over the years as these things continue to come up, as I would continue to feel guilty, as I would continue to wonder if I'd made the right decision. I would be reminded, you are doing this because you are saving your daughter's future. And that is the kind of message you only get through the Holy Ghost, that you only get when you are trying to stay on the straight and narrow, stay close to the Lord, listen to him, follow. When I'm left to my own devices, when I do whatever I think I should do, I'm wrong. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm wrong. But when I'm careful and I'm prayerful, the Lord does not lead me astray. Even if things get hard, even when things seem scary, even when things seem like they're getting worse, I can hold on to that, and I can hold on to that answer that I got and say, I know that this is what he wanted me to do, not just for me, but for my children. And we will make it out of this. We will get out of this twilight zone. We will get out of this hole, this pit. We will make it out of this. We will win the war. We may lose battles, but we will win the war. Now, this week has been a little rough because... Oh, sorry, I totally got sidetracked there. The point that I wanted to make about her doing dance was that was the one thing that he and his family actually were kind to her about and encouraged her to do. She's very talented at dance. And so as negative as they would be toward her, that was the one positive, was that they took her to dance, they paid for her to do dance, they encouraged her to do dance, and for some reason that was something that they allowed for her and actually really truly encouraged her to do. And not just her, but her younger sisters that wanted to participate in it too. They provided that for them too. But for some reason, my oldest daughter, that was her thing, right? It was dance. And so when through the years of fasting and prayer and knowing that my faith would move mountains, another episode I will explain about what finally happened for me to be able to get my children living with me. That was one thing. I think that was the only thing that he and his parents made it a point to say to my kids and to me, are you gonna have her do dance? And then when I did get her in dance, I did right away. We found a studio and got her involved in dance. Oh, well, thank heaven. She's doing dance. I'm so glad your mom is facilitating you doing dance. That was another gaslight that they were doing, was they were telling the kids and telling other people that I didn't support my kids doing dance or doing anything extracurricular. I still to this day have no clue where they got that from. I don't recall ever saying anything even remotely like that. The only thing I can think of is that they were using extracurriculars and all kinds of things to load the kids' schedules to try and act like that was why they couldn't see me and spend time with me. And even if I came into town, it was like, well, they've got all these things they got to do. You got to take them to go do these things. It's like, no. I came into town. I'm only here for a week. I'm going to spend time with my kids. They can miss scouts and whatever all else. They can miss these things and spend time with their mom who they never see, right? No. That because seeing me didn't matter. It was all these other things, right? And for the longest time, I just didn't get it. I didn't understand. It's another one of those Twilight Zone things, right? And you can't ask them, right? Because to them, it's well, they got to do this, right? Well, now my daughter has continued to do dance, and but there has always been this kind of, oh God, how do I explain it? There's always been this undertone. Yeah, that's the word I want to use. There's always been this undertone about it where she almost doesn't seem to want to do it. She almost seems like feels obligated, almost like she feels forced. Like this is just something that she just does. And it's hard because sometimes it felt like, oh, okay, well, she's just really serious about it, or the way she would act almost desperate about needing to be doing dance all the time. I thought, okay, well, I guess she just has a passion for it, right? And I mean, she dances on her own too. It's not just with dance classes, but still, there just still seemed to be something about it that was off. And finally, this week, so she actually, instead of doing studio dance this past school year, she's doing something called POM, which my understanding is it's not cheerleading, because cheerleading is more tricks and formations and things, versus POM is more dance and fewer tricks and stuff. So anyway, it was a new thing for me this year, but still just as expensive as dance, still just as time consuming, still just as much drama, still just as much, almost too high of an expectation put on these girls. This is a kid who is a straight A student and, would flip out if she got a B. And so, I was afraid. I was afraid of her doing this, but she really wanted to do it. And I just was like, okay, but, you got to remember, it's hard because like the POM organization, they think that comes first, right? But it's like, no, I'm pretty sure school does, pretty sure your grades do. If this is getting in the way of your grades, then, that's not good. Anyway, just a lot has happened over the year. And so I really was, and in the end, she kind of was telling me, well, she always seemed miserable. She always seemed in a bad mood. Every time I'd pick her up from her practices, she would do the sideline things at the sports games. She admitted she never liked doing those. They got to do 2 competitions was all they got to do, and that was actually doing dance, but I know that was super stressful for her. Anyway, like I said, she just never seemed that happy. And so I was really looking forward to the season ending and getting a break from all of it, and especially her getting a break from all of it. And she was like ready to sign back up to do, because they'll have auditions and they'll do a new POM season will start up before the school year is even over. They'll be doing stuff all summer long and then all through next school year. And so I'm just like, no, I don't know if I can take this. I wanted her to get a break. It was like a week. It was like a week before they were going to be holding some clinic and doing, getting them ready for auditions. And I was just like, oh my gosh, we got no break. And I was just like, I thought you had said you didn't want to do this. Like really, like I talked with her at length more than once. And it was like, okay, yeah, we're not going to do POM again. Like that is just not your thing. Okay. Not that she isn't amazing at it. Okay. But I could tell she just didn't want the downtime of not being involved in something. And so I just was like, okay, well, let's consider doing we ended up leaving the previous studio that we were at, and I wasn't crazy about going back to that one. It was quite far, and one of them, and there was a studio actually super close to our house. I was like, well, let's just consider this one, so that I'm not having to drive so far. And they actually, incidentally, could even just walk. I say they because a couple of my other daughters were wanting to maybe do it too. Anyway, so I just said, well, let's go check out the studio. Well, she seemed to perk up. She seemed to actually be happy. Because when she was talking about doing Palm again, she did not seem happy. She seemed very resigned and depressed. And I'm just like, I can't take this. I can't let you do this to yourself, right? I'm your mom. I'm telling you, this does not feel like a good idea. So I said, well, let's go check out this dance studio. Well, then she perked up and I was like, okay, great. Let's go check out this studio. Well, we talked to them. They said, I'm sure you can go check out other studios. And I said, well, I'd be willing to give this studio a try. They kind of sold us on the place, but she said, check out our videos. They had stuff on social media. And I said, okay. So I told my daughter, well, let's consider this. I'm going to talk about it with your stepdad. Of course, these things aren't cheap. So I needed to talk to him about the cost and everything. Right. And I wanted her to do her research and just see how she felt about the studio and if she really did want to try it out. Well, it really didn't feel like she actually looked into it. When she asked, so am I going to, start, because we knew that there was going to be a class happening the very next day. And she said, oh, can I go do that class? And I said, well, do you even know if you want to do this studio? Like what is it about that class that you want to take? What is it about the studio? I wanted her to check out their Instagram page and look at their videos and things. And, anyway, she hadn't done any of that. She just wanted to go. And I was like, okay, well, I still need to talk to your stepdad. We still need to discuss, the financial side of it. Okay, yeah, please talk to him. Talk to him tonight. She was very anxious, right? So I talked to him and, understandably, he was like, okay, well, maybe we can consider doing something where we pay for 1 or 2 classes a month. Maybe she earns the money somehow to, and we have ways for her to earn money here in our home. We have a family entrepreneurship chart that we do. It's been pretty cool. And so the kids it's not like they get an allowance and then they're expected to do chores. And I'm getting on them saying, well, you already got your allowance. Now you need to do your chores. I didn't want to do that. I wanted them to basically do like a regular job where they say, well, I want to do these chores, right? So they'll do a chore and then they can mark that they did the chore. And then I pay them when the week is ended. So so it's divvied out and people can say, well, I'm going to do this one today. And, so then we're not locked into a certain amount. And if they want to do chores, great. If they don't want to do chores and don't want to earn money, fine, and it's very much the ball's in their court. So anyway, so when I say opportunity to earn money here at home, but obviously she could do stuff outside of the home too. She could walk dogs. She could babysit. She could do all kinds of stuff. She's 14. So, just basically saying, well, if you want to take more than a class or 2, then we need to talk about you figuring out how to earn the money. We'll work with you on it to pay for any additional classes. She was not happy about that. And I was surprised. I really thought she would be okay with that idea. She was not okay with it. And I think some of this is, her age. I think maybe she, could be influenced from friends. I definitely think this is coming from a place where she's learning things on social media and all of that. She does have a cell phone, unfortunately. So, we had gotten the kids their cell phones before they were living with us so that I had a way to reach them. So I didn't have to do it through their dad or his family. I could reach them each directly. So we had provided them with cell phones and cell phone plans, and we wanted them to be able to reach me when they needed to and me reach them, and that they could, reach out to anyone that they needed to in an emergency, when they were in the not with me and with him because they were in a different state. But anyway, so I digress. So basically, she wasn't happy about that. It seemed very odd to me. I felt frustrated because my feeling was this isn't unreasonable. I didn't have things like this provided to me when I was 14, and I got a job as soon as I babysat up until I could get a regular W-2 job once I was old enough. I did all of these things in order to earn my own money, and, not that I never got an allowance, but, I didn't have things provided to me. My parents didn't do that, and that's okay, right? I'm not angry about that, but I feel like, well, if I'm going to do that for my kids, they sure as heck ought to be grateful for it, but it just doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel like they're grateful for that kind of thing. I had to pay for my own cell phone, but she's not having to pay for her own cell phone. And so I'm saying these things to her. I'm just like, well, hang on. You're acting like I'm being unfair, but look at what all we're paying for you. Things that I didn't get paid for when I was a kid. No one provided braces for me. You have braces being provided for you. I had to pay for my own cell phone. You have a cell phone being provided for you. We provide you opportunities to make good money doing chores and babysitting just here in our home. You don't even have to leave our home. I mean, I just feel like I'm trying to do a good job. Oh, I'm trying so hard. And yet I feel like I'm fighting and fighting and fighting, okay? And like I said, this just seemed odd. The whole thing just seemed odd, coming from her and the whole situation and everything surrounding dance. And so I'm frustrated, and I'm praying and I'm praying and I'm praying. And finally I have this epiphany. The Lord gave me this priceless knowledge, okay? He showed me that for my particular daughter, what dance means to her is it's kind of like a lifeline. It's almost like a drug. That was the one positive that she had before her coming to live with me. And I think that became her identity. And that was something that, her father and his family, I think the reason why they supported her doing that and were so positive about it was because it made them look good. It was one of those things where it's like, we don't want anybody to know our secrets and what happens, the ugly truth about what happens at home. But if we can put on this facade and look wonderful at church and look so great because my daughter and granddaughter and my niece is in dance, and look at how beautiful she is and how talented she is. And so then it's a selfish thing on their part that they want her to be doing that because that makes them look good. Okay, so it really wasn't even about her. I'm convinced of that for their part, it wasn't even about her. And who knows, right? Maybe we'll never know if dance would have actually been a boon for her. Because I think right now it has turned into something that is kind of like a sick obsession, where maybe either they made her not truly enjoy it, or maybe she truly just doesn't enjoy it and feels like she has to, because it became a part of her identity. And also I will say when kids are split between two homes and split between two families, even if the one home and family was abusive, it's like I forget the term, but they still have they still have endearing feelings. They still have love for those people, right? I know that she still loves her dad and loves her dad's family, right? Even if she feels angry with them sometimes, even if she has poor memories, she still loves them. They're still a part of her. And so this idea of moving away from them and not seeing them and not associating with them, but having dance still feels like having a tie to them. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks, this psychological connection for her. And I realized that I had my own experience with her dad and his family and the things that they would decide were okay about me. But it was because it made them look good. He supported me. I couldn't spend money on anything, but he would buy attractive work clothes for me to wear when I was working and he wasn't working because it made him look good. I wasn't allowed to go out shopping, but he could shop for me and he would pick these clothes. And some of them were a little, maybe not totally appropriate for a workplace, But it's because it made him look good. He had this sexy wife that was his sugar mama. That made him look and feel good. It didn't matter how he was making me feel. How I felt didn't matter. And how my kids felt didn't matter. Anyway, these are the kind of dynamics that we have to deal with. Even though my divorce is long over, even though my kids have been living with me full time for almost 2 years now, it's been 2 full school years, but it's been almost 2 calendar years. We still have so much to heal from, so many barriers to break down. I think and now I'm trying to be prayerful and say, how can I help my daughter to identify what really is going on with dance, what it really means to her? Does she really truly enjoy it or not? Could she maybe try a different sport? When I was praying and I was thinking about all this, and I just, in her back, she's been starting to have this like scoliosis thing kind of going on with her back. She's been to a physical therapist a number of times. Her legs were kind of shown as being 2 different lengths, but she got an adjustment and they were doing regular physical therapy with her. And so then they got her where she was looking great again. But that started to happen again. She hasn't been to the physical therapist in in a few months. And now her back's starting to look bad again. And so I'm just like, okay, maybe this is a sign that she needs to stop doing dance. Maybe just temporarily, or maybe altogether. And I had this image of her swimming laps in a pool. And I was like, this is a girl who's so active, wants to stay in shape, wants to look good, wants to be healthy. And swimming laps would be a great thing for her to do. I would love to figure out a way for her to be able to do that. Maybe swimming could be her thing, I just don't know. I don't want to force anything on her. She's been through so much. She's had so much forced on her, and I don't want to continue doing that to her. But I've got to be able to break down these barriers somehow, right? And I know how to do it. I know that it's possible through the Lord. I know that I have found healing through the Lord. I know that my kids have already found healing. Yes, we still have things that come up, triggers and issues and disputes and all kinds of stuff, right? There's so many episodes I could do explaining all this, but I know that through the Lord we'll get through it. And one of the things that I've been able to use over the years to help, there's many different forms of therapy, okay? And that's another episode. I can talk about all the different forms of therapy that I've tried, that I'm aware of, stuff that works, stuff that doesn't. But I do know that there is help out there for anyone, for any situation. And that the Lord, our God is a God of miracles. So nothing is impossible. I know that nothing is impossible. It doesn't matter what you've done. It doesn't matter what someone else has done to you. It doesn't matter about your childhood. It doesn't matter any of that. You are able to find healing and hope and a bright, amazing future through the power and atonement of Jesus Christ. And I don't have time to explain it all right now, but I will. I will get to it. So stick with me. Keep listening. And we will get there, and you will find answers either through me or through inspiration that you get after listening to what I have to say. You will be prayerful. The Lord will guide you, and you will find answers. You will receive inspiration. You will get there, and you will be better than ever. I promise you.